Who's going to write it?
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Very good.
Everything sucks. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. Leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
Oh, was that? I forget the end of that.
Because that was what pissed Bill O'Reilly off was that someone had written a line about Sting and he didn't like the way it sounded.
Oh. All right. Well, we are in the midst of our opening remarks here. We have a timer here that I'm going to set. And
fine.
We have it set to 10 minutes, and we got 10 minutes, guys.
All right.
Uh-oh.
This is your... All right.
The sign is not lit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that what you were yelling about? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So in our pregame warm-up period tonight, let's talk about some announcements. I'm uploading a lot of nonsense from North and South Dakota lately, as well as Montana and some other western states. So that's what's coming up in the next few weeks. Full-length interstates. I believe every Sunday there's going to be at least a pair of videos that are part of the full-length interstate series, and that's probably going to continue like that indefinitely. So that will probably keep me occupied for a while. NFL Final Four and my own February road trip, which is coming up at the end of this coming week, actually. So, but before we do that, in case you've been living under a rock, like some of us have, it's Conference Championship weekend in the NFL. I am going to be recording a Super Bowl preview episode for the Gribble Nation Roadcast next week. So depending on the two winners of tomorrow's action, those are the two cities that we will profile. Doug is going to be pulling his hair out if he has to profile Kansas City for the sub whatever year in a row. But it could be them, it could be Buffalo, it could be Philadelphia or Washington. So
for a Super Bowl that your tongue will like.
Why do you say that?
It's Super Bowl licks.
Oh. Yeah?
Yeah, licks.
The food is very good in New Orleans.
It is.
Which,
Philly.
well,
they
but
just
they're
gotta
not.
thaw it out first.
Philadelphia or Washington. Whoa,
so.
hang on. What the hell is this shit?
What do you think?
That's because it didn't load on my page correctly here. Hang on. I have the episode on my phone just so I can catch the chatter. So I'm just making sure that the sound volume is good. That's why I had that. I forgot to mute the sound on my phone, so we're good. All right. So there's that. And meanwhile, the countdown is on to the NFL Draft, which is going to be in Green Bay coming up in April. And the Tennessee Doughy Butts have the number one overall pick in the draft. I actually have floated the idea to the Titans front office. Speaking to people who haven't muted their phones. Thanks, Bill.
I tapped on something incorrectly. I apologize.
Yeah. I have actually floated the idea to the front office of the Tennessee Titans that they should just change their logo to a doughy butt because they stink. So, we'll see if that gains any traction here. But they are on the clock with the first overall pick in the draft, and I couldn't be prouder of them. They, for once, are number one in something.
Yeah, that's how you shoot the moon.
Yeah, we're never going to win a Super Bowl, but we can at least have the number one pick in the draft and be the absolute worst team there is. So, way to go, guys. If you have not seen the footage of the snowstorm on the Gulf Coast this past week, in Louisiana, Texas, right all the way across to Florida, spend some time looking around at the photos, especially those that came out of New Orleans this week. The making of snowmen on Canal Street and in the French Quarter is something that happens maybe once in a lifetime if you're lucky. The all-time snow record in New Orleans, which was, I think, 10 inches, that record was broken with this storm. New Orleans has been around for a long time, over 300 years, and they have not seen snow like this. So pretty amazing to see a Gulf Coast metro area just completely shut down because of a bona fide snowstorm. In fact, they have more snow accumulation this year than a lot of the cities in the Northeast have so far this winter, which is crazy to believe, but that's where we're at, right? So yeah, pictures like this have been coming out the last few days, and this is I-10 snow covered. Obviously, the only vehicles that would have been using it would have been like Louisiana State Police or NOPD, stuff like that. They did do a good job of getting out in front of this thing, and just, like, I think the day before the storm hit, they automatically shut down all the highways.
Yeah,
They knew that this was going to happen.
I was looking at this data, right? Louisiana proactively shut down all the interstates in New Orleans, and they shut down a lot of I-10 in western Louisiana, too. Whereas, like, over in Texas, Houston was just kind of figuring it out. There were a lot of roads blocked, but nothing was proactively closed.
Yeah. But, yeah. Picturesque Jackson Square there. Yeah, so certainly you would think a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence took place this past week, and that's pretty awesome. Although I guess maybe not if you live down there. But they were saying that the amount of productivity lost in the Gulf Coast was comparable to what would happen if there was a major hurricane. Because I think the storm rolled in on a Tuesday, and basically everything was shut down until Friday. So, and then they couldn't do anything because it's not like they have snow plows to get rid of the snow. So you just gotta sit there and wait for it to melt. Although they did import snow plows, at least in Louisiana, they imported plows from other states like Arkansas, Tennessee, and I think Oklahoma as well. So my February Clinchathon trip is actually getting underway 6 days from now. After work, I'm gonna drive. I'm actually taking my personal car for this trip, so there's no airplane or rental car involved. So the closest new interstate mileage to where I currently live is Interstate 81 in Southwest Virginia. So that's where I'm gonna start, and then I will likely end up in this general area: Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia. There's a whole gap in coverage here that weirdly has formed because as time has gone on, I've focused my efforts more like in the western states, but I just sort of left this section east of the Mississippi in the Eastern time zone blank for a long time.
Some of it's in Central Time, but
some of it is, yeah. But yeah, so I'm going to work on closing that up, I think. And I have 2 weeks to do it, so that should be more than enough time to do it. Knock on. So, looking forward to that. Looking forward to a bunch of these new states east of the Mississippi River reaching 100% completion on the interstate system. And then there will be all sorts of new content derived from all of that footage that comes out in next month. So that is where we're heading in the first couple of months of 2025. All right, that's all I got as far as announcements. So I think we covered everything. We still got 2 minutes,
Yeah,
guys.
we still got 2 minutes.
Is there anything pressing that we should address? Do you have? I know it's not like December 23rd, but do you have grievances you want to air?
I think we should, I don't know, use this time to introduce people.
I guess we can do that.
Yeah, it's the logical next thing to do.
All right. Well, I mean, that is part of the episode, though, so I think we'll wait. I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee.
The coffee.
In preparation for us to all be Florida man today.
I thought in this day and age it's covfefe.
Well,
no one ever definitively figured out what that even was supposed to be.
I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be covered.
Which, yeah, okay.
We talked about the thing. It was about the news covfefe.
That would do it, yes.
yeah.
I mean, I also saw someone that photoshopped Kofif to look like it was like a medication. It was a box. Kofif, 25 milligrams. Okay.
Oh God. Yeah. But you guys were all like chatty before. I couldn't get you to be quiet to tell you, "Hey, we're gonna go live," and now you guys got nothing to say.
Yeah.
That's
There
funny
was
how
a
that
time
works.
limit. We were trying to make sure you stayed
You
on
got 26 seconds. You know.
Well,
We don't have a, well now that we're under a minute. I don't have enough.
Is anyone in the live chat helping us count down?
Yeah,
Come on, guys. Is anyone who's gonna yell 15 seconds?
Well, yeah. Well,
They're just saying hi to us.
we're under a minute, so I can't play that Jerry Jones AI video from earlier. I also don't want to get reported, so.
I'll just quote the last word, Squidward.
Squidward.
Squidward!
Okay.
That was Chinese.
Yeah, I don't know about this timer chime. I might have to see if I can change that.
Loud bell.
No, it's kind of like oceany. It's fine for Florida.
Yeah, all right. All right.
Oceanian Gulf of America.
Pre-game show is over, so welcome to another virtual tour episode. We're bringing this feature back for 2025, and along to discuss the length of Interstate 4 with me, we've got a few people live in studio. We've got Maddie K, we've got Anthony, we've got David Golub of East Coast Roads, we've got whatever the hell I should introduce you as, Bill. That works.
Yep, that works.
Yeah, what's your name again?
Phil.
Yeah.
Phil McCracken.
Yeah. So tonight we're gonna do
Cracking here.
we're gonna do a full drive of Interstate 4 across Central Florida from Tampa, St. Petersburg on up to Daytona Beach by way of the Orlando metro area. So let's set this up for you real quick. I-4, it's signed as east to west, but it does have more of a southwest to northeast orientation, and in fact through the Orlando area it's pointed north-south more times than not. But an easy way to remember your directions on the interstate is that eastbound I-4 goes to the east coast of Florida with the Atlantic Ocean, and I-4 west goes to the west coast of Florida with the Gulf of America.
Very logical.
Yes.
So you guys know the routine. So we're going to cover about 150 miles in this particular video. And if you guys have any questions either at this juncture or at any point during this drive, feel free to drop them in the chat, and somebody who is living or breathing who sees them will do their best they can to answer them. All right? As the Tennessee Titans mascot, thanks you for watching. Okay. So that's all I got for PowerPoint. Let's see. This video is 1 hour 57 minutes to go about 140 miles or so altogether. I don't know what it said on the Google Maps. I don't know how accurate that is, but here we go. 3, 2, 1. Off we go. I-4 eastbound.
Construction tarp.
And now you will notice, rightfully so, right off the bat, that we are actually not on I-4 at the moment. We're actually on Interstate 275 northbound, leaving St. Petersburg, heading towards St. Pete Clearwater Airport and the Howard Franklin Bridge. So why are we starting the video here? Well, because once upon a time, in the early 1960s, this was actually part of Interstate 4. I-4, as it currently stands now, connects Interstate 275 at downtown Tampa with Interstate 95 at Daytona Beach. The original incarnation of I-4, which goes back to the early days of the Federal Aid Highway Act in 1956, called for I-4 to be built from Daytona Beach all the way to St. Petersburg. In fact, this section of interstate opened around 1960 and was originally signed as I-4, and remained so until the 1970s when it was renumbered as part of I-275. We'll talk more about 275's evolution in just a second, but there are more steps. It's not quite as simple as that either for 275. I-4 had an original western terminus in downtown St. Petersburg, and what we're about to cross over Tampa Bay, the Howard Franklin Bridge, was completed in 1960 and was signed as I-4 until about 1973. what we were passing through right now is the eastern terminus of the Gateway Expressway project, which is Florida Highway 690, was built as a 4-lane tolled expressway to connect the 275 freeway with St. Pete Clearwater Airport and the north-south US 19 corridor through Pinellas County. That project reached completion in the spring of 2024. This video was filmed in February of that year, roughly about a month and a half before the mainline lanes of 690 opened to traffic. Construction is continuing on 275 as we head towards Tampa. The tolled express lane project, which is a sort of eastern continuation of the Gateway project, is underway, as is the expansion of the Howard Franklin Bridge, which will replace the original 1960 span, which carries eastbound traffic, with a new parallel span as part of the complex. New mainline lanes will be added onto the new span, as well as the tolled express lanes will be carried by the new span as well. The Howard Franklin project is scheduled for completion near the end of 2025, although that may or may not have been delayed. Of course, Hurricane Milton came through the area back a few months ago and did a number on some of the construction activities in the Tampa-St. Pete area. The most famous images of Hurricane Milton might be those of the damage caused to the roof of Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, which has resulted in the Tampa Bay Rays relocating, at least for the 2025 season, to George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, which of course is home to the New York Yankees minor league complex and spring training facilities.
They don't have this sign anymore, unfortunately. So one of the things that struck me when I was a kid and my family would go on vacation to Florida that I do remember is that we would go over this bridge after landing at Tampa International Airport, and there was a sign as you were like approaching the last exit before the bridge that said "Long bridge ahead, check gas." Which I guess they must have had issues with people running out of gas going over the bridge, which it is a decently long bridge, so not exactly as long as your average next services warning sign. You saw the VMS back there talking about downtown exits being 12 miles away. The bridge is almost that long, but
yeah.
You must be running on pretty low fuel if you can't make it 12 miles. I'm just saying, but
yes. Don't put it past some people, though.
Oh no,
Especially in the 1960s and through 80s and 90s.
Yeah, the Howard Franklin is about 3.5 miles of bridge, and then not including the causeways here. So it's
Right.
about 6 miles
Yeah.
from end to end. Well, back when cars got like 8 miles a gallon.
Right.
Yeah, it actually
Well,
might have
the
been
thing too, you to realize,
significant.
right? Yeah, every modern car now, will start dinging at you if you let the gas get low. And there was back in the day, cars didn't even necessarily have an idiot light, so
Right.
you could, if you were not paying attention, not realize that your dial was on E.
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is the original Howard Franklin span, which opened in 1960. It originally carried 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. Now it's been reconfigured to carry 4 lanes of I-275 eastbound into Tampa.
Which is why the two spans are actually different in terms of where and how steeply they slope up. This is another childhood memory. Is I remember going over this bridge and my dad commenting on this. It's like, hey, the two bridges aren't the same. Why is that?
Yeah,
Well, they weren't built at the same time.
The question is, do they have the same name?
they do. They're part of the Howard Franklin Bridge complex, yeah. So they do have the same name. The parallel span, which carries westbound traffic to St. Petersburg, was completed in 1990.
So they didn't pull the kind of trick that they did on NJ37, where each span gets a different name.
Well, or
No.
on I-70, where each tunnel technically has a different name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, at the Continental Divide, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Right, but you can see, right, the original bridge has a steeper slope coming up to over here where it crosses the shipping channel.
Yeah, and this is a product of the interstate design standards of the late 50s being vastly different from what they are now. So a bridge like this, which was in the planning stages even before the interstate system was a thing, you could get away with building bridges like this back in the day. Of course, given that this had 2 lanes and no shoulders in either direction, that would be a big no-no by today's standards as well, at
That-
least
that
for the
was
interstate
also
system.
allowed in the early days of interstate construction is that bridges didn't have to have shoulders. It
Yeah.
was a cost-cutting measure.
It's interesting
To be
that they're-
fair, we've got some of those around here too.
Oh, yeah.
Just old ones that haven't been replaced.
Yeah.
It's interesting this third span that they're constructing. Apparently, they're going to keep all 3 spans when this is all said and done.
No, they're going to get rid of this one. And I think eastbound is going to hopscotch over to what's currently the westbound. And then westbound gets punted over to the new bridge.
Right, which makes sense because if you think about it, if this opened in 1960, it's 65 years old now, and a lot of things that were built in that era kind of had 50-year design life. So, yeah, it's due.
Yeah.
So when this carried traffic in both directions, was it divided or was it just like this but with a double yellow line down the middle?
I would imagine there was a divider
Yeah.
since it was on the interstate system.
Yeah, there's an old photo, and I see it looks like there is a divider.
Yeah.
Oh, we've reached dry land again. How about that?
Yes.
Dry causeway, at least.
Well, it's manufactured land. If beautiful land.
It is fill, technically, yes.
Fraction data, that's it.
So the first exit is for the Veterans Expressway, which heads north to the northern Hillsborough County suburbs, and Tampa International Airport is right here as well, right off this exit.
Yep.
So, of course, we're in the city of Tampa, which is the anchor city of the Tampa-St. Petersburg Clearwater metro area, which has a population of about 3.3 million people per the 2020 census figures.
And a bunch of the real estate downtown is owned by the Church of Scientology.
Is that right?
Yes, actually.
I didn't know that.
Did you not know that? Now you know.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not know that. Yeah.
The more
So
you
Tom
know.
Cruise owns all that land, huh?
Something like that. Go ask Tom Cruise why he won't come out of the closet.
Where's Shelley?
Yeah, so right. This is the other interesting thing too, right? Talking about childhood memories, like I was saying, okay, we're fine. Exit 39. What I remember driving this road as a kid, and these exit numbers were sequential. Florida only switched to distance-based numbering in the early 2000s, so and it's one of those things where I childhood memories will be strong things. I remember like what the old exit numbers were like, and I remember that when we went to Busch Gardens, we got off of exit 30, and that was way north of here. But
I guess they don't do old exit signs.
well, I think they did.
Well, they're
but
not
it's-
Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
They're
but
not-
it's
they
been-
did, but they're not still up 20-something
Yeah, right.
years later. Is the thing, all right?
Yep.
For the unaware, when I talk about being down there as a kid, I'm talking about it being the 90s.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
The
yeah.
first time I was in Florida was 1992.
Yeah.
And consequently, I was on I-4.
There you go.
Off of your Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah. So, right. So approaching downtown Tampa, where they also now have there's a terminus here of an interesting Amtrak service that is actually it used to be the Silver Star. It's temporarily the Floridian because they combined it with another service. Where this thing it's a train to Miami, but it actually on the way to and from Miami makes a side trip to Tampa. And then backs up and goes back the other way before heading to Orlando. And it is currently known as the Floridian.
Oh, that's goofy.
Yep. So Tampa does have Amtrak service, and while it appears to be the end of the line, it is not a terminal. Amtrak can sometimes be funky like that.
So it has the appearance of a dead end, but it's...
The train just goes back the other way, and,
yeah.
and you can stay on it. It's not like right, yeah.
In New Orleans, Union Station is like that, where all the trains pull in, and then they go out the other side of the Y.
Well, right.
So
Currently, there isn't any through service to New Orleans because the Sunset Limited doesn't go east of there anymore. When it did, yes, there was that. There. I mean, there are other cases, right?
Yeah.
The Ethan Allen Express has to back out of Rutland. There are other cases.
Oh, all right, yeah.
But anyway, we're now coming up. You saw a sign for I-4, so we're going to be on modern I-4 soon enough.
Yeah, because you guys actually want to watch I-4, right?
And
but
you
I
probably
guess
came here for roads, and I'm yapping about trains.
Oh, that's all right.
For those who don't have overlapping apologies, well, deal with it.
Yeah, you notice the big expanse in the median here, and that was done intentionally because there's the sort of vague long-term possibility of filling this in with tolled express lanes, probably as an eastern continuation of the lanes that are being built now on the Howard Franklin Bridge. And you'll see this as we transition onto I-4 proper. It's kind of the same construction. Not here, though, as we enter what's known famously in Florida as Malfunction Junction, which...
Oh, another one of those.
Yeah, another one of these. The original interchange here was completed around 1962, and it has been a pain in the neck for Tampa area drivers ever since. This is where 275 branches off to the north, and I-4 officially begins at this interchange and heads east. Now, when the original interstate system for Tampa was drawn up, 275 didn't exist at all. This was originally going to be the southern terminus of I-75, and I-4 was going to continue west from here over to St. Petersburg. It was only when the 275 number was brought into service in the 1970s, and 75 was decided to extend down to Miami by way of the west coast of Florida in Alligator Alley. So that's when 275 was born in 1973, and that's when all of this got renumbered officially. But this was originally, per the 1956 federal aid plan, this was the southern end of I-75.
Well, I think there was also at least one iteration that had it as I-75W, because that was the way things were done back in the day, too. I don't know that it was ever actually signed as that, but... Yeah, so welcome to I-4. Terminal for cruise ships off exit 1, and also coming up is the connector over to the Selman Expressway, which is another 2000s era project where, right, there's these two parallel freeways serving downtown Tampa. You've got I-4 going into I-275, and then you've got the Selman Expressway, which then heads down the peninsula, but there used to not be any freeway connection between the two of them west of I-75. So this project, where you can exit off to the left for it here, is designed to fix that, and it is a massive project that this freeway takes up the width of an entire city block, with these various roadways that are letting traffic go then between the two freeways. And so there's one piece, and then so then we got US 41. Size matters according to this billboard.
Yep.
Size matters with roads, certainly.
Oh, so we already passed the exit that says, let's go to Brandon.
I was wondering if someone was going to say something like that.
I was talking about the connector over to the Selman Express.
Ah, yes.
Of note. Yeah, I mean, this part of I-4, right, is now like not the part of I-4 I'm most familiar with, because this is the other thing too. You talk about childhood trips, right? When we would go to the beaches over in Pinellas County, we would come there from Tampa Airport. We went up 275 to go to Busch Gardens. This is now a part of I-4 that I had to clinch for myself as an adult. It was not involved in any childhood trips. The only piece of I-4 that I was ever on as a child this is probably going to absolutely shock some of you, the section getting to Disney World from the Orlando airport.
Never saw that one coming.
Yeah, wow.
Well, I think with me, it's only the part between the Florida's Turnpike and Disney World.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
also
kids
works,
never
yes.
go to Disney World. It just doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I was on I-4 was between I-95 and the Orlando area. We did go to Walt Disney World, but we were actually visiting family that lived
Yep.
in the vicinity.
I-4, by the way, is also entirely has a hidden designation of Florida State Route 400. Past the east end, 400 becomes signed. So you will see that eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, and
If we get there, because this is I-4, so you never know. We might get stuck somewhere in
Stuck behind an alligator.
Osceola County.
and this is a standard, right? And this is a standard thing with Florida is that they have these state highway designations that lie under interstates and U.S. highways. Florida is not the only state that does this. Georgia, Alabama do it too. So does Tennessee. But yeah, these designations are generally hidden, unlike Georgia, which will often just sign them anyway, along with the regular route.
Well, Georgia does many things differently,
But I mean, their covers can get blown, though. I know. I somewhere I have a photo from Pensacola of a couple of a sign for Florida State Route 95. Which is like, well, that's technically correct, but it's not what that road is supposed to be signed as.
Yeah.
And yeah, because that's the thing is right. There is a system with these where the major 1 and 2 digit routes are kind of delineations across the state. So Florida 5 is on the East Coast. A lot of it is technically US 1, and then 95 would be going into Pensacola. And then with the east-west routes, you have them increasing from 10, which is also actually I-10, down to 90 at the southern end. And the 3-digit routes are sorted according to which of the major east-west routes they're near, right? So here in this area, the numbers or their 3 digits are all in the 600s because it's relatively near Florida 60, right? But as you travel up and down the peninsula of Florida, you will see those numbers increase as you go south. That's why there's a bunch of 900s down in Miami and 800s up in the West Palm Beach area and everything. Whereas if you go up to like Pensacola, there's a bunch of stuff on the 200s and right because they have a system to it, and it is decently well organized. Not that of course that there aren't exceptions, because there are exceptions.
I mean, they do make a solid effort, though, which is more than a lot of states can say. So contrary to what happens in a lot of cities, the mainline interstate here, I-75, actually bypasses most of the metro area to the east. Again, not how it was originally drawn up, but that's how they ended up doing it once it was decided that 75 was going to go all the way down to Naples and Fort Myers and then do a dogleg over to Miami via Alligator Alley. So the I-75 I-4 junction, which was originally planned to be located in downtown Tampa, in fact it was for a few years, it was signed as such, now is about 9 miles to the east.
Well, and it works out in this instance because the geography of the area means that following what is now signed as I-75 is not just faster if you're going from north of here to south of here, it's also shorter. Rather than taking 275 through Pinellas County and over the Sunshine Skyway, which is certainly the more interesting route, but it is longer and slower.
And considering what happened in 1980, it's a good thing you didn't route 75 down that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last thing I would say about I-4 through St. Petersburg is that in late 1960s, they did intend to extend the designation down to basically the Pinellas County entrance to the Sunshine Skyway, but they were not going to sign the Skyway itself as I-4. And those of you may already know this, but the original Skyway was a 2-lane bridge.
Right.
It was not an interstate standard facility. They did add the parallel span in the 70s.
And then it still wasn't an interstate standard facility, but that didn't stop them from throwing shields on it anyway.
Right, yeah. So they weren't about to extend I-4 across the Skyway Bridge. That was always going to stop shy of there. And then, of course, what happened, and we got the new bridge that opened up in 1987. So we always think of the Sunshine Skyway as, this beautiful signature cable stay bridge, but there's actually a long story before that, before how we got to the point where we are today.
And the approaches to the original bridge are now fishing piers.
Yeah, they are.
You actually have exit sign as Sunshine Skyway North, fishing pier.
Yeah.
There's another thing I remember, going over those bridges as a kid, and my dad being like, "Why is there a fishing pier? Why did they build a fishing pier here? Because we didn't know. Why would they build a fishing pier? Well, they were reusing the original infrastructure, and part of the deal with that is that the new bridge was built to cross the shipping channel at a different alignment, because one of the challenges with the original Sunshine Skyway Bridge was that it actually crossed the shipping channel on a little bit of an angle. So rerouting the bridge made it cross it on a 90-degree angle. This is a thing that has since become known, that when you build bridges across shipping channels, you want that bridge to cross the shipping channel at a right angle. You don't want it crossing it at any other angle, because that increases your risk of ships hitting the supports of the bridge. Even if it's shorter to build the bridge that way, and therefore seems cheaper, it's risky.
Yeah.
So, past exit was apparently pretending to be New Jersey.
It happens.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of transplants down here, so...
Yeah.
As I say, that you know it's fall in Florida when the colors of the license plates start changing, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious, though, how do they wind up with CR 579 down here? I'm assuming they don't follow the same system.
No, the county routes actually generally do also follow the same system.
The 500, 600 system?
From 100 through 900s even, yes.
They follow the same system as the state routes, you're saying?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
And the other thing, too, is also a lot of those county routes that have numbers like that are former state highways. So if it was what was it that you said?
579.
Yeah, so someone looked this up and checked, but there's a decent odds that was State Route 579 at some point.
Got it.
I know this does also happen too, where the road will actually continue and keep the same number. Speaking of Pensacola area, Florida State Route 399 is a little bit of a ridiculous one, in that it basically is the footprint of a trumpet interchange with US 98. And then the state highway designation basically ends the southern end of the interchange footprint, but it continues as County Route 399.
Yeah.
Right?
I did encounter that one last year, yeah.
Yeah, and so also then on the I-4 subject, you also will see things like Winter Garden Vineland Road in the vicinity of Disney World, right, is County Route 535, but that was in the past part of State Route 535. It just kept the number when they dumped it, and these days, they're usually signed with pentagons. There was a thing in the past where often you would actually see the Florida State Route shield, but it would just have a C in front of it, so it would be C dash the number to indicate that it was a county route.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's still some of those around if you know where to look.
So I-4 across central Florida, its designation was created in 1959, and construction on it began shortly thereafter. The first sections of it opened in the Tampa area in 1960, as we mentioned. It was completed between Tampa and Orlando by 1962, so this was the earliest section of the highway to be completed outside of Tampa. The interstate was completed to Daytona Beach by 1965.
Yeah, all things considered, is fairly quick and early on for an entire interstate highway to be finished.
Yeah, and also, it's worth remembering that, the population of this corridor was a small fraction of what it is today. So they didn't quite have the resistance that they would have today if they were trying to push something like this
through. It's only 130 miles long, too.
Yeah, this was not built as a 6-lane freeway. The right lane having different pavement texture is not a coincidence. They widened this. That's the thing, right? Orlando, even since the 90s, has grown a lot. It's not just it's grown; it's still growing.
Yeah.
People moving down there to retire. Disney World and Universal have brought some people to the area, certainly. Another big thing is also just this little thing called air conditioning becoming economically viable to have in your home.
Yes, it's true.
You know, suddenly, a place like the Florida Peninsula becomes a lot more interested in being a place to live. This is a thing to note. Is that historically, right, the Florida, when it was a colony, what was for a while cut into actually two separate colonies of East and West Florida, with Jacksonville, I believe, and Pensacola as the capital cities, and why it's the capital is now in Tallahassee is because when they combined the two, they just kind of compromised and said, all right, fine, put it in the middle. And it's one of those things where you look at this and go, well, why is the capital of Florida way up there in the Panhandle, which no one cares about, when all these people are living down in Orlando, Miami, Tampa? It's like, no. You need to realize that back in the day when that was made the capital, basically no one lived in the peninsula of Florida. The population was all in the Panhandle and along the northern part of the eastern area, and that was because the peninsula was a really humid swamp and no one wanted to live in it.
Yeah.
This video brought to you by Publix.
Indeed. Publix. Tasty.
Let's see.
This is the thing. We got to keep yapping about something until we get to Orlando and the road gets interesting again.
Well, I do have a couple of things to say coming up here when we reach Lakeland, but
Yes, Lakeland, which also has a freeway, tollway bypass that is also of relatively recent construction. It wasn't finished until the early 2000s.
and they're actually continuing to expand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is Central Florida is still expanding its freeway network, which as the population is growing, it makes sense that they would.
Yeah, like my first visit to Orlando was in 2015, and when I came back in early 2024, it might as well have been just a completely different place, just because of between the two visits, the I-4 Ultimate project had happened.
Mm-hmm.
The Wekiva Parkway had been completed, and they were widening the 429 and 417 loops at that point.
Yeah.
There were new express lanes on the beach line. I mean, like everything was different than what it was 10 years prior when I had been there last. So it was almost like visiting a new city all over again. And I would imagine it's not outrageous to think that 10 years from now I'll go back and a lot of it will be different again.
Certainly, yeah.
Just because of how rapidly things are changing down this way.
Yeah, you can. All right, so you talk about 429, right? So the deal with Orlando is that there is basically a tollway that forms a beltway of the city, and it's 417 on the east side and 429 on the west side. And yeah, I remember going to Disney World as a kid. 429 didn't exist. Period. None of it was built. Mm-hmm. And 417 wasn't actually finished yet. It didn't actually connect directly to I-4 yet.
Oh, okay.
I know. I had a map of Disney World from 1999, and it showed some of the surrounding area of the approaches, and it showed 417, dumping you into local streets over at that point. But the connection to I-4 hadn't been built yet. And even 429, even this is also an example of how rapidly the metro area has grown, had to be rerouted. Part of what was originally built as the northern end of 429 is now 451, and they had to route 429 further west because they built it to up to a stub end and neglected to purchase the right of way to continue further. And so right near the north end of that freeway, it's suddenly very quickly, residential subdivisions popped up like daisies, and now it's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
now we're not gonna demolish them. We got to build the road further west. So they built a new alignment for 429 west of there, and part of and so if you look at a map, you'll see Florida 451. It's kind of around like, why does this exist? Well, that was the original part. That was originally part of 429, and it was supposed to continue north from there. But when that was the intention, none of the development there, just west of Apopka, existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will still be in Hillsborough County for a few more miles. So we are still officially in the Tampa MSA. But I should mention that, one of the things that it's like the popular transit geeky thing to come up in conversation every so often. It's like one of those zombies that just it comes up and it's dead for a while and then it comes back after a little while again. The talk of a high-speed rail corridor along I-4
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Between Tampa and Orlando, maybe even beyond that. But that's something they've kicked the tires on for decades, it feels like. And it sounds like that's finally dead because they're basically building the tolled express lanes in the right-of-way for where the train corridor would go. So I would imagine this is the end of that idea, although you never know.
Yeah, I mean, Brightline went and built the service from the Orlando airport to Miami, and and that does get decently used. But yeah, that was a private company that did that, and the other thing about that too is that the vast majority of it uses existing track, right? See, part of the challenge with high-speed rail is that when this became an idea that there was a push for in the early days of the Obama administration, Federal Railroad Administration regulations still basically said that if you want high-speed trains, they either need to never interact with any other railroad, they need to be completely their own isolated thing, or they need to be built like tanks for crash-proofing. So this is part of why, for example, the California high-speed rail project is being built at great expense as its own isolated system, because when the project was conceived, that was necessary in order to not have the trains be tanks. And the Federal Railroad Administration has since chilled out about this, but any project that started before they chilled out has the burden of being built to follow the old rules, and this is how Brightline is able to use most of the existing track, which is certainly a less sexy way of doing this, but it is a far more cost-effective way. And Brightline is running decent levels of service. They've got trains running every hour or two all day, and they are used. So there is demand for it. 570 Pulk Parkway. This is the southern bypass of Lakeland that I mentioned was not finished until the early 2000s. And we're looking at Rand McNally's and seeing that as a dashed line.
Yeah.
This is how I know this.
In fact, a quick aside about 570 is that they are actually expanding it at its eastern end. It was originally built as a Super 2, and they are dualizing that as we speak in a project that I think was supposed to be completed this year. Other than the eastern end, it is at least 2 lanes per direction. I think the other big change was that they got rid of the toll booths on it, so it now is completely cashless.
Sun Pass or toll by plate.
Yeah. So that's a recently new development as well.
And mind you, while it doesn't say it explicitly, Sun Pass or toll by plate does mean Easy Pass is accepted. If you have one of those, you can use it there too.
That is correct. Yep.
And they do actually read the tag. You can use it in a rental car. It's fine.
Hey, I had the pleasure of using my Easy Pass in Florida in 2024. Then I looked at the bill and it was like, holy shit. But yeah, it was convenient for me to be able to just take my home transponder down to Florida.
Right, well, and the other fun thing about that, too, is that they do not actually transponder discriminate. So if you use your Easy Pass, you get the Sun Pass rate.
Yeah. Okay. So we are now in Polk County.
Got milk?
Yeah. Lakeland and Winter Haven, they classify this as its own metropolitan statistical area now, actually. Polk County is not only one of the fastest growing counties in Florida, it's one of the fastest growing in the nation. Per the 2020 census, the population was over 800,000, and it's projected to exceed 1 million by the end of the decade.
So it's not even that low of a baseline that you're starting from when you say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how fast, especially Winter Haven, the Winter Garden area out that way, they can't slow down people from moving there. It's incredible. And this, of course, has repercussions with the transportation system because, of course, a lot of the infrastructure here was built in the 70s, 80s maybe. especially like the main state highway system, like US 27 further to the east. So they can't stop the development from happening, but they don't really pay much attention to the road capacity either. So
They have to deal with the entire elderly population of the Northeast and Midwest trying to move there.
yeah, so
Basically,
good luck with that. So
Well, they don't drive too much, so.
That helps, actually, yes.
So yeah, that's another important point to make, is that some of the relocated population here is just seasonal. So the census figures indicate permanent population. It doesn't really account for people who move down here 3-4 months out of the year.
Well,
So
claim Florida is their residence.
Well, all right, no, they would. if you're doing things right, you need to be down there for more than half the year to be claiming it as your residence. But people do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mentioned it being in fall when the license plates start changing cover. Yeah, no, there are people who basically beginning of October will drive down to Florida, and you'll see them again on Memorial Day, basically if you're in New York or Connecticut or wherever. So they are spending the majority of the year in Florida.
And also with the censuses, it's where you are on April 1st, and that's it.
For the decennial censuses, yes.
Yeah. My grandfather used to have a second place down in Florida. And, I mean, he spent somewhat more time in New York than in Florida, but he did have a Florida license plate.
Because cheaper insurance.
Probably.
Well, and if you are actually spending the majority of the year down there, that is again what you're supposed to do, regardless.
But he wasn't. He was spending like 7 months in New York.
Well, all right, but
So.
yes, a New Yorker cheating on insurance, never.
Well, the other thing too, Florida does not have a motor vehicle inspection, so there's also that.
That does that you do avoid that then, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason for it was, but I remember he had a Florida license plate. So, yeah.
I'm sure it's either one or the other or both, but just conjecture on my part. But I know that's why a lot of people do that. It's certainly not uncommon here in the Northeast to see the same car day after day with a Florida plate.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen that one.
Right, either in the summer or around the holidays, usually. Not in the middle of February, because then they're in Florida. But
Right. Well, I don't know. I beg to differ. I saw quite a number of Florida plates on my way up here.
not nearly as many.
Well, they're trying to escape the snow.
No, all right, now, yes, now that's true. That's true.
Let's get up north where it's clear and no snow.
Yeah.
That would work if you were in the southern hemisphere. Oh look, we've got exit 33 for Florida 33.
There you go. It's nice when that happens.
Yeah.
No, well, that is true. I mean, all right. So all of that crazy snowfall that happened along the Gulf Coast recently happened along the east-west part of the Gulf Coast. So it wasn't happening down here, but yeah, anyone in Tallahassee, Pensacola would have been experiencing a lot of that type of thing. Now certainly that part of Florida and the Panhandle, right, is not a popular vacation destination. Certainly not for people from the Northeast or Midwest, anyway. There are still people that have moved there to retire because it's a lower key alternative to Orlando or Miami or Tampa or all that. It's not quite as warm in winter. I mean, okay, fine. It usually doesn't snow, but I mean, it's interesting. I was in Pensacola in January at one point, and yeah, it's like all of like the beach-oriented businesses were closed for the season. That part of Florida, it's not year round. It's like you might be used to up here. They close down for the winter because while it usually doesn't snow, they're fine. Great. Your daytime high is 65 degrees. If you don't really want to go to the beach at that point.
Is it like Wildwood, where the only business that's open is Wawa?
No, I'm talking about like the surf shops and whatnot being closed. Otherwise, yeah, it's a functional city. Everything's open.
Okay.
It's not a beach-oriented business, but. The weather usually ain't bad, right? You might.
well, this time of year, yeah, it should be.
Usually, right?
Yeah.
It's just the thing is, I remember the first day I was down there, it was like in the 40s, and everyone was walking around like huddled up in like thick, puffy coats, and I'm like, this is great. I think this is nice, but all right. The people who live down there, that's cold for them.
Yeah, where was it that I was recently where someone was saying... Oh yeah, I think it was one of our Facebook discussions where someone was saying something about, oh my god, it's so cold, it's in the 20s. And it's like, yeah, for those of us in New York, that's just winter.
I mean, also depending on what part, right? Downstate 20s is ordinary winter nighttime lows.
Yeah.
Certainly, upstate can actually be fairly warm for if you want to go to Tupper Lake or something. 20 degrees, oh, nice day.
Yeah, right.
But
I mean, there have been plenty of winters when we have daytime highs that are in the 20s.
It's not abnormal for it to be. It is below average though. This time of year, if you're like really, I mean, it's going to depend a little bit, but figure New York City area, the average daytime high in January is going to be like in the high 30s.
Yeah.
Average. That doesn't mean that if it's in the 20s, anything's weird. It does happen. Because, it can be in the 20s, it can also be in the 40s, but the average is in the upper 30s.
Yeah, you occasionally get a freakishly warm 60-degree day in January.
Yep. I've seen that, right? That would be really unusual.
New Year's Day 2023.
Yeah.
Went to the Jersey Shore.
There you go.
It was like 60 or 70, something like that.
Right. Well, there was 2015 that it hit 70 on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I remember that. I wore shorts at the family Christmas party.
Well, I remember being at apartment with some of my wife's family, and they had the air conditioning going because they had a bunch of people in their apartment and it was 70 degrees outside. They actually needed the air conditioner to keep it cool.
By the way, so for anyone who hasn't figured this out yet, New Year's Day is a really good day for road geeking because there's no traffic, because no one's out there after everyone was up till God knows when partying like it was 1999.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody's hungover. And
right.
whatever.
Then you need to not stay up and watch the ball drop and get hammered, though, which, all right, I don't like doing that anymore anyway, but
Yeah.
for some people, that's their scene. Hey, you gotta make your choices in life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just don't drive after you do it.
That is also key, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's also more in the sense that, if you've been up late, whether you were drinking or not, getting up early to go out road geeking is a little bit of an ask.
Right.
Because and this is also important too, right? While it's certainly less enforceable, driving while short on sleep is not really a good idea either.
No, it is not.
If you can help it, it's less controllable than driving drunk, but it can also cause issues. The thing is, it's so fickle, right? There multiple times I have gotten off of a red-eye transatlantic flight and gotten in a rental car in Europe and driven off and been driving basically most of the day, and been fine. But all right, at that point I was running on adrenaline. And your mileage may vary. Some people are not going to get away with that. You got to know it works for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think New Jersey passed a law that if you haven't slept at all in, is it 24 hours, 36, 48, something like that, that it's illegal for you to drive.
If you haven't slept in 48 hours, you're probably doing meth. I'm just saying.
Well, or at that point you would be absolutely delirious. Isn't the thing? Even getting to 24 is a big problem. If you're getting to 48, now that's talking about wartime torture level sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
24 can be done.
Yeah,
24 can be
36.
done, but you're hurting, or at least I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how you didn't enforce that either. Unless the cop says, "When did you last go to sleep?" Oh, it's about 6.
The thing is, if
you mean what time or what day?
If you're that tired, it's going to be obvious.
Yeah.
So, officer, I only got I slept 23 hours ago.
I'm still good.
So, when I was in high school, we used to do something called the 36-hour math competition.
Oh boy.
Which literally is what it sounds like. It's a math competition that you do over a 36-hour period.
See, and I feel like when you're in high school, your body takes that kind of punishment
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, so I did it twice, and the first time I did not sleep at all for the whole 36-hour period, and probably not quite 48, but I probably went for like 40 hours or something without any sleep. And the second time, I think I managed to fall asleep for like 1 hour or something.
See, at least you were actually part of a competition. I'm thinking like, all right, well, when I stayed up all night in high school, I was just up all night on the internet.
Yeah.
And then get to the point where it's like, oh, hey, the sun's coming up. Oh, okay, fine. I guess I'm not sleeping tonight.
Yeah.
Which would see this is another thing that future generations won't get, is that there was a specific reason why I was staying up all night, and that was because no, it's not because I was doing anything naughty. I'm sure that's probably where some of your minds went. No, it was because we only had one computer in the house with an internet connection. And so if I wanted hours on end of uninterrupted time on the internet, I would have to do it after everyone else had gone to bed. Because if I went on the computer during the day, well, all right, fine. Someone else might be using it. I had my parents. I had two sisters. And even if I got on the computer because one of them wasn't already using it, my mother would come in and be like, "All right, save what you're doing and get off the computer. I need to do something," and then I'd get interrupted. And so by waiting until after everyone else went to bed, I would guarantee that I wasn't interrupted, which is a strange concept in a world of everyone's got their own internet connected device. But that is how it was back in the day.
Now, did you have a dial-up internet connection?
When I was in high school, no. Okay. No, we had cable internet by the time I was in high school. I do remember having a dial-up connection. Now we're talking about me being in like 4th, 5th grade, but yes, that was also a thing.
Oh, I had the dial-up until freshman year of high school.
Yeah,
and when we switched, it wasn't to cable; it was to DSL.
Yeah, I never had DSL. We went from dial-up right to cable.
Same here. The thing is that where we lived was also one of the first places in the country where like that cable internet was actually made available, and my parents did sign up for it as soon as they could. So yeah, we never had DSL, but we actually had cable internet before the turn of the millennium. Believe it or not, because in the era where we lived, it was available.
Does anyone remember those old commercials that made fun of DSL? Where it was like, what does DSL actually stand for?
Digital slower line?
Digital slow line.
Right.
Depressingly snail-like.
Right.
In other
Or darn,
groups,
why am I still
it
using a
stands something
telephone
totally
line?
different, which
The thing is, though, in those early days of cable modems, the cable modems that they had were not necessarily all that reliable. And there was a brief period where we had cable while my parents had a temporary place while construction was being done. And while it was faster, somewhat, it also went down a lot, whereas the DSL basically just always worked. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, now I have Fios, and it's fast Fios, and it always works, and yeah. But there was no Fios back then.
This is a relatively new interchange that was built in the last couple of years. Remember how we were talking about how quickly Pulk County has grown, and Winter Haven being one of the largest population centers in the county now. So we're seeing new stuff, new development out in this part of the county as we get closer to the outskirts of Orlando.
Appropriately named for people having their winter homes.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, this is where my uncle first moved.
Reliably, if you want to... I wouldn't recommend doing this, but if you really want to find a traffic jam in Florida, just go find I-4 eastbound from here all the way up to Disney. On any given day, this will be bumper to bumper for the most part for the next several miles, all the way up to the outskirts of Orlando. But thanks to the modern technology of YouTube video editing, we're going to be able to get through here at freeway speed.
Nice.
How many attempts did you have to record going through here to achieve this?
So this was a different take, what we just got on, than the previous one,
Yeah, no,
obviously.
I could tell, yes.
I think from here on I just did in one take. And we'll see that it even gets a bit sluggish at times in this video, but it was like, you know what, I can't actually do better than this. So I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to leave it.
Unless you time-lapse it.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to speed it up or whatever, yeah, you could do that. But I just was... Yeah. It had been 2 weeks, and I just didn't have any patience anymore, so I'm like, screw this. I'm not
that is the thing that I have seen people do when they're filming road videos and they encounter congestion, is that they just start skipping frames and speeding it up. It's like, all right, fine. You don't need to sit here in traffic with me.
Yeah. Yeah, but one of the reasons why I-4 is so bad in this particular stretch is that, unlike some of the sections that we've already been on and will be on once we get on the other side of Orlando, there's no parallel surface road network in this area. So a lot of the commuter traffic going into and out of Disney comes down this way, and this is the only road that's convenient to get between Winter Haven, Lakeland, and the southern side of Orlando.
And the Reedy Creek Improvement District.
Yes.
Which, for those who don't know, is Disney World.
That was the working title for it, wasn't it?
Well, that is actually still the name of the legal entity that is able to operate as its own quasi-government thing, enabled by the Florida legislature.
Well, does that exist anymore? Because I thought they got rid of that recently, or they only got rid of parts of it.
I'm not going to comment on the details because I'm a little fuzzy on them. I know there was an attempt to get rid of it. My understanding is that the state of Florida attempted to pick a fight with Disney, and one way or another they lost. But the mouse is strong. You do not pick fights with the mouse. It's ultimately what that comes down to.
I thought it was going to be something like ordinary politicians don't mess with magic.
Well, yeah, because I know that was the working title when the site was, proposed and developed, because they didn't want to blow their cover about it being.
And that was the other thing too,
yeah.
right? Is that they had Disneyland in Anaheim, but they're like, all right, fine. Well, we need more space to be able to build more parks. Where are we going to put it? Let's put it in the middle of nowhere in Florida. Okay, fine. Let's go buy up a bunch of land. And so Disney actually founded a whole bunch of shell companies to go in and start buying up land.
Right.
And they actually did it under a bunch of different shell companies because they didn't want people to catch on that Disney was trying to buy this land, because then they jack the prices up if they knew what was going on.
Right.
It was actually, they were a bunch of sneaky bastards about it. They did a good job of hiding what their intent was. Yeah, this all took place in the early to mid '60s when all the land was purchased, and then the original Magic Kingdom opened.
The second Magic Kingdom, the one in California, was there first.
Well, Orlando Magic Kingdom
was
completed in 1971, I believe.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and that was the first of the 4 modern-day amusement parks in the Disney city. Which, I mean, we could spend some time talking about this too. That if you ever navigate around the Disney bubble, I'll call it, it's kind of weird in a sense, because it feels like its own country in a way. It's its own contained, self-sufficient thing.
Their signs are not MEGC compliant. They do. This is also part of the thing with the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Yeah, they have their own highway department.
They're exempt from FHWA, I think.
Well, it's just that because they're not a state agency receiving any state funding, there's nothing that FHWA can force them to do to comply, because they aren't using federal money.
Yeah. Right, so that explains why all the signage is what it is, and they perform their own road construction and maintenance. They have their own engineering division, so they take care of the roads and bridges themselves. I don't think Florida DOT has any real insight. Maybe on a bridge inspection level they might have an oversight role, but I think even then their presence is minimal. So yeah, it is pretty wild.
There was at one time, Disney World they're slated to have their own nuclear power plant to power all of Disney World. Now, obviously, they never built that, but I believe the option was there until very recently.
I think they built something else instead, didn't they? Because they do have their own power station.
This I'm not sure about.
There's at least one on the campus that powers at least a portion of the property. I don't know what the specifics of it are, but that sounds about right. That they do have some sort of electricity generation capability. But yeah, for Disney, there's the 4 main parks, right? There's Magic Kingdom, there's Epcot, which was 1982, I think, when that was completed.
Experimental Prototype City of Tomorrow.
Yes, that's what Epcot stands for.
Epcot is an acronym, if you didn't know that.
Yep. And then what was originally called MGM Studios is now called Hollywood Studios, I think.
It is called, right. Well, because they had a licensing agreement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer that expired and was not renewed, so they took MGM's name off of it.
I see. I think that was late 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
When it opened up, yeah. And the MGM name, I can tell you it was still there in 1999, the last time I was in that park.
Okay.
But I think it was early 2000s that the MGM licensing went away. At least for the name of the park. They still had a lot of MGM movies in the Great Movie Ride for some time after that. But...
And then the 4th park being Animal Kingdom, which was 2001, I want to say.
No, that existed in 99 when I was there.
Was that 99?
Yeah, it was new, but it was there.
Okay.
It definitely was within my lifetime because I remember seeing commercials for it on TV.
And the thing is, we didn't go to it because I remember my dad being like, "Oh, it's just going to be like Disney does the Bronx Zoo." So I've never actually been to Animal Kingdom. Even though I theoretically could have on that one trip.
So I am sort of curious, what makes it different from the Bronx Zoo?
Well, for one thing, it isn't actually just a zoo. There are rides.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Number 2, it's not the Bronx.
That's also a crucial one, yes.
Yeah, the animals don't curse at you.
Here we go with 429, the western part of the Beltway, which at this end does not line up with 417. They intersect I-4 in different places, but this is where you'll get the south end of it up towards Apopka.
We'll be entering the Disney World very, very soon.
It is kind of interesting that you can think of Disney as its own city, its own population center, because of the number of visitors it gets on a daily basis and the number of people who stay overnight at one of the lodges or hotels on the property.
Which are numerous.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the overnight quote unquote population of Disney would be on the average day.
There's also note that the sign over there for Disney World Celebration so Celebration is a community that was also created by the Walt Disney Company. It's a little planned town. But also the presence of Disney World on the sign itself is, while very functional and useful to anyone trying to find it, is also one of those interesting things where it's like, well, technically that's an MUTCD violation. You're not supposed to put the names of private businesses on guide signage. But, I don't think anyone's going after them for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could argue
definitely not the only place where that one's been violated.
You could argue it's one of the most famous amusement parks in the world. So,
and that's not an understatement. People from other continents do go to Orlando to go to Disney World.
Yes, they do.
There is a decent amount of international tourism there now. There didn't used to be. This is a good thing. Go back 30 years, there really wasn't international tourism there. There is now.
Mm-hmm.
And to prove you're in the Disney Realm, on the left you can see the Mickey Mouse Powerline Tower.
Yes. So if you wanted to drive a full circle around the Beltway, you would have to overlap with I-4 for a couple of miles.
Here's 417 peeling off now. All right.
Yeah. The two highways, as we'll see on the other end of the metro, do intersect each other and transition into each other seamlessly, but that's not the case down this way.
So this was a section of 417 that wasn't finished until the early 2000s on the southern end here.
And if you're coming into Disney from the southwest, going this way, this is likely the exit you will take to reach the amusement parks. All right, so we're now, as we're passing the Disney complex, we're now in Greater Orlando. Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford, which has a population of about 2.7 million per the 2020 census and growing quickly.
It's the largest metro area in America with only one interstate.
Yes, this is true. We were talking about this off the air beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not the largest city with only one.
That is Austin.
Yes.
But largest metro area, with which where the city limits are drawn for that is known, right? So this is also worth noting here, right? In terms of some of the history. Now we're coming up on the exit for 192, which if you were here in the 90s would have been the first exit in a while, because 417 wasn't finished down there yet. 429 didn't exist, and the exit into Disney World, which is the southern extension of World Drive, also didn't exist. World Drive, which is the main north-south drag through Disney World, used to begin at US 192. And so I remember as a kid coming the other direction from the airport, we got off at 192 and took 192 over to what was then the beginning of World Drive, and at the time it was, I believe, exit 23. It is 64 now. But also, at the time, the next interchange you see coming up for Osceola Parkway, that did not exist in the 90s. That interchange was built later. Osceola Parkway, by the end of the 90s, existed, but for some time it crossed I-4 and there was no interchange. So that was not an entrance point to Disney World. And then the next exit after that for 535, Apopka Island Road, was exit 24. Sequential numbering, yes.
Disney Springs is another relatively recent thing. That's a big commercial shopping district.
The Epcot is not rendered in all caps. They do not acknowledge that it is an acronym here.
No, they do not.
No. Which so this is true. So this where it says Epcot, the name of that roadway is actually Epcot Center Drive, and I do have to amend something I said before. This interchange did exist in the 90s. This interchange did also exist. The Osceola Parkway one didn't. This one did. So it was 23. This was 24. Apopka Island Road was 25.
I'm still impressed that you remember all the sequential exit numbers.
I remember those three because they were on the map that I stared at many times. If you asked me what any other random one was, I couldn't tell you. I remember from poking around that the highest one was, I think, like in the 50s or something, but it's not a thing I would have had reason to know.
Unfortunately, I don't remember much about my road trip to Disney, which would have been when I was 5 years old in 1995.
There you go.
Goes back a while.
Yeah. I was a road geek, but not a very, not one who could remember very well, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, at that age, a lot of people don't really form very vivid memories of things.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly some road geeks can. It's one of those autism superpowers, but not.
It's the
not something
exception rather than the rule.
Not something that would be expected, right?
Yeah.
Talking about things that happened when you were 5 years old. Yeah, I mean, I remember a time when was this when I was 5? Yeah, I think I actually was 5 that we went on a road trip, not to Florida, but actually to Strasburg, Pennsylvania, and I explicitly remember my parents missing the exit on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and us having to go a different way to get there. I remember this. But it was a very noteworthy thing to me that they missed the exit.
But they didn't miss the exit on the PA Turnpike today, otherwise it would cost them an arm and a leg.
The story I have like that from when I was 5 years old.
Oh, look, traffic.
Yeah. So...
before you tell your story, let me just point out to the audience that this was like 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Hey, Jersey
you...
plate.
See, plates
So
are
this
changing.
is like cross Bronx level of bad.
I-4 is very much like the Cross Bronx through the entertainment district. Yeah.
So maybe Animal World is like the Bronx.
And and the thing is that this is not a new problem either. Again, you talk about one thing I do remember from that trip in '99 is us coming from the airport and us taking the ramp from 528 down onto I-4. And my dad comes and says, this is good. We haven't hit any traffic yet. And he says, and I say this as I see I-4, which is bumper to bumper. So yeah, we got on I-4 and instantly there was traffic, and that was 1999. Nothing. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, bumper to bumper traffic on I-4 is
this
about
part of I-4 certainly.
is as American as apple pie. So
Yep, very much commonplace.
Yeah. And this is why I gave up trying to get a congestion-free look at it, because it's like, well, crap, if I can't get it at this hour, then what the hell?
Yeah, you'd have to do it at night, and then you can't see anything.
And this is all traffic getting out of hotels around Lake Buena Vista and going up to either Universal Studios and SeaWorld are in this direction, or if you're going in the other direction, you're going towards the Disney complex.
Or even necessarily some people going back to the airport. This is the other thing too, right? You'll get people leaving if they have early-ish flights, they'd be on their way to the airport now.
That's true too, yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's not just the guests moving about, it's also the thousands of park workers that live in this area that are commuting. So there's not really a defined rush hour in this part of Orlando. It's 24/7 constant.
A lot of stuff happening on not a 9 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is another reason why this area is sort of like its own individual thing that shouldn't count towards the Orlando MSA, because it just doesn't behave the same way as everywhere else.
Yeah.
Now they are, in the early stages of addressing, or quote-unquote trying to address, the congestion issue in this section of the interstate. We're going to check out the I-4 Ultimate project in a minute, but the I-4 extension of the toll lanes, what they're calling the Beyond the Ultimate, which will take the lanes further to the southwest and further to the northeast into Volusia County. The next phase of that has begun construction, and that's what we're starting to see up ahead here.
Yeah, speaking of counties, this is another thing that's going to be of note to some road geeks, is that while most of Disney World is in Orange County, the very southern extreme of it is in Osceola County. And so if you went on a trip to Disney World, and the question is, well, have you clinched Osceola County? And if you got off of I-4 at 192, you did. But if you didn't go that far south, you didn't, basically. So you have to remember.
The Beyond the Ultimate project is extending the 2 lanes of express toll lanes in each direction further south in the direction of Lake Buena Vista to the southwest, and across the extending it about 10 miles northeast from where it currently
Someone
ends.
took a bite out of that one.
Yeah.
Cape Can. They have a nice can sale.
Yeah, dude. Donald Duck was causing some shenanigans up here.
We're by exit 71, so this is SeaWorld, so it's probably Shampoo.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, so SeaWorld is on your right. Universal is going to be on your left in a couple of miles. And right here is 528 Toll Road, a.k.a. the Beachline Expressway, a.k.a. by its original name, which was the Beeline Expressway.
Yes, and it was renamed the Beachline as a request of a politician from the coast area to be like, well, people who go on vacation to Orlando and all they ever do is go to Disney World and Universal, they should realize the beaches are not that far away.
And they're not. No.
The Beachline Expressway is like, hey, this is the way to the beach. Come visit the beach. And it's true, it isn't. Right? Yeah, You go out 528. You get to the airport. You're basically like almost a third of the way to I-95. Actually, it's not that far.
No, it really isn't.
I think it's only a little more than a half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot further than Daytona going north up I-4, but with 528 going, this is also why it was called the Beeline Expressway, because if you look at it on a map, once it gets out of the Orlando area, it really is a very straight beeline east.
Yeah.
Due east. Through a bunch of swamp.
And in the years since the expressway was built, you now have the Port Canaveral cruise ship terminal, which is one of the anchor ports for the Disney Cruise Line, among other cruise lines as well that sail out of there. So Port Canaveral has really become a huge sort of like seacoast extension of the Disney/Universal tourist
You
district.
also have Cape Canaveral itself, Kennedy Space Center, as a place that people do go to visit.
That's right.
Yep, out there. There's an unfortunate thing with that, though, that there was an interchange on I-95. There was an exit to Kennedy Space Center that, because it was a partial interchange, it actually said under the sign that said Kennedy Space Center. It said in black letters on a yellow stripe, no re-entry.
Oh.
Unfortunately, that is now a complete interchange, so you can re-enter there, and the sign no longer says that.
No re-entry. Once your rocket has left the atmosphere,
Yes.
you ain't coming back.
Next exit, 93,000 miles.
I will note that for exit 74A, it's a diverging diamond interchange, but there's also a weird loop ramp if you're going from westbound to I-4 westbound here.
Yeah, the International Drive exit is one of the main exits that you'll take for the Universal Studios complex, which is up ahead here, and we'll go by it on our left.
Right, well, and now this is the other thing, too. So many people go to Orlando, and all they ever do is visit the parks. Downtown Orlando is kind of like a, what, that exists? That's a thing? Yes, it's a thing. There is more going on in Orlando than these amusement parks. I mean, Sand Lake Road, which we just passed, there is a massive Lockheed Martin facility off of that. They're a major employer in the Orlando area. Downtown, there is actually a bit of a downtown. You will see it soon.
Yeah, we're still 7 miles outside of downtown, but yeah, there's...
It's already saying Daytona Beach is the place we're going to, though.
Yeah.
But we're paying up to speed up. Okay.
Oh, we're going to pay tolls here.
I hear Steve groaning somewhere.
See, now, all right. See, last time I was in this area, this wasn't open yet. I don't think. Because when did this open? These
This would have been 2022.
Yeah. So
last time I was here, this wasn't even conceived of.
the last time I was here was 2019. It was under construction, as I recall. So yes, that adds up.
At least the toll's only $1.
Well, to go the first couple of miles.
Yeah.
It's also one of those things where it will depend on how much. It'll get higher as there's more congestion. Which does actually lead to an interesting thing with express lanes like this. Where, right, as the congestion goes up, they raise the price. But this has an odd effect, though, because usually you think, oh, well, if the price is higher, that'll discourage people from buying it. The problem that they start to actually run into is that people will see that the price is higher and will realize that means there's more congestion to bypass. So the effect that raising the price actually has on the number of people who enter the lane isn't as clear-cut as you might think. Right. We'll cross over of Florida's Turnpike. It is not the Florida Turnpike. It is Florida's Turnpike. Excuse you.
Originally called the Sunshine State Parkway.
And
Or at least-
originally actually intended to be a road up the East Coast that basically when the interstate system was created, they actually said, okay, hold on, stop construction. Because now we get to build this road up the East Coast using all this federal money. We don't got to build a toll road for it anymore.
Yeah.
And then what they then decided, though, was that they were going to resume construction of the toll road, but they were going to detour it inland to go to Orlando because there wasn't a Miami-Orlando interstate plan. And so that is why you see the Florida's Turnpike is basically parallel to 95 for a ways. That's the part that was already under construction. when the interstate system was created.
Like up as
And then,
far
when,
as...
and then where it turns west to go inland, that's what they started building after the interstate system was created. And they did then build it north of Orlando too to end at I-75. And this is also what's interesting is normally you would think one of these historic toll roads would have had some other endpoint that was built for, and in this case, no. Actually, the interchange with I-75 was planned and built as the north end of Florida's Turnpike, and there isn't like a historic end to it. That by the time that opened up in the 70s, at that point, it was built as an interchange with I-75, which was also under construction. So if you are struggling to find the historic northern end of Florida's Turnpike, well, that's why there isn't one.
Yeah.
It actually was planned to tie into the interstate system like that. It's funky.
So, as I'm sure you know by now, congestion along the I-4 corridor has been a huge hassle for decades, and Florida's solution to this problem, at least within the city of Orlando, was the I-4 Ultimate Project, which we're driving the tolled express lanes of right now. The project was commenced in 2015. It was completed in 2022 at a cost of about $2.3 billion. So there's 2 tolled lanes in the median in each direction. No expansion really to the capacity of the toll-free lanes. It still is about 3 lanes each direction in the general use section. Causing a little bit of controversy. I know that, if you're expanding highway capacity, you would think that you would expand it to all users, not just tolled users or people willing to pay a toll to use a highway, but
it's still added capacity, and it still benefits the people in the other lanes too, because now some of the people that would be competing with them for that space are over here instead.
Yep.
yeah, as you can see on this particular day, the express lanes get a lot of use. So
Seems like these are more congested than the regular lanes.
Yeah, well, we're also talking about the demand effect. In this case, right, the prices are not that high. It's fairly baseline price. So
Now, before this was constructed, was this just a very wide median, or were the lanes actually closer together?
I'd have to go back and check my historic footage of this, because I drove it in 2015 before they really started construction of this. That actually wouldn't be a bad before and after video to do at some point, but I believe there was a median here. I don't remember how wide it was. I don't think it was nearly as wide as the separation is between the general use roadways are now, but there was a gap between them.
There's also a section of this that's unelevated viaduct that they did a whole bunch of stuff with the space underneath it to try and pretty it up and make it like park-like. So it's another thing you can do in Orlando if you're curious enough, is you can go hang out in the park under the freeway. They deliberately built one.
Yeah, it is kind of an oxymoron, but there is green space underneath a freeway viaduct.
Under the bridge downtown.
Does the grass actually grow there with the lack of light?
No. Well, so it's not. When I say it's a park,
It's like basketball courts.
it's going to be
and,
like concrete, not grass.
Yeah.
like sidewalks.
Right.
Yeah. So this is one of the
space.
one of the central pieces of the I-4 Ultimate Project was this 4-level stack interchange with the East-West Expressway, Highway 408.
See, I told you Orlando actually had a downtown. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. The original interchange here was kind of like a double trumpet almost. How it was a trumpet interchange at the I-4 end, and then you had a common roadway to connect the 2 highways. And then that funneled into like either a trumpet on that end, or maybe it was a 3-level interchange or something. But that was a parking lot at all hours of the day. At least now with the reconstruction, it's somewhat more passable. But it's only a matter of time before this becomes obsolete with how fast everything is growing around here. The Kia Center on the left, I don't know if you saw that, but that is the home of the Orlando Magic NBA franchise. And it's important to mention at this point that for the most part, as we pass through this section of Orlando, I-4 is actually oriented north-south. It's not an east-west highway. And in fact, in a couple areas, it does double back on itself, where like the eastbound lanes will be oriented more to the northwest even.
A little bit, slightly. It does kind of jog, have some jogs that drag it a little west, yeah.
So as we're passing the exit for Princeton Street, I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone that Princeton doesn't matter, and that is an official Yale slogan.
Okay.
Seriously, I am not joking there.
This Princeton doesn't even have a dinky train.
Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing that Princeton has going for it.
The dinky?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I guess the portion of US 1 in Princeton is kind of cool. but yeah.
Not if you work right next to it like I do.
In what sense?
My office is like right next to Route 1, and it's backed up all the time. Mostly because of the screwy traffic intersection that used to be a circle.
So could Princeton use an international airport too?
They have a general aviation airport. Ironically, not in the municipality of Princeton, though, but in the mailing area of Princeton. People don't tend to spell Princeton with a 6.
No, they don't do that either. Simpsons reference for those of you shrugging with question marks in your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know I wasn't the only one.
I don't get no regard. No regard at all. No esteem either. Rodney guest starring in that episode.
Matt, I'm not made of airports. Right. Actually, and even tie into the Orlando theme. If you want to watch The Simpsons, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, is it? I didn't even know
is,
that.
Actually,
Okay.
yes. What you need to do though is you need to go into the settings and change it to watch it back in the original aspect ratio. Because if you don't, they'll cut the top and bottom of the video off to make it modern
boy.
TVs, and that's just not proper.
See that? Disney's screwing up The Simpsons just like they're screwing up Star Wars.
They actually when originally the show went on Disney Plus, that option wasn't there, and people complained
Just
very
screw up
loudly.
Central
The Duff
Florida.
Brewery tour.
Yeah, right, and that they actually added in the option because they said, all right, we need to do something about this. We've actually watched the show in the original aspect ratio.
Oh, man.
Popka again. Yes, that name keeps coming up. I also
It keeps popping up.
well, right, because also
popping up.
oh, right, because Apopka Vineland Road, right, which is a north-south road, which is directly east of Disney World, it is also a place of note. Some of you may have had the experience of staying in a hotel on Apopka Vineland Road because it's cheaper than staying actually on Disney property, but it is right outside of Disney property. I know on one of our trips we did that. We stayed at a hotel there. And I mean, it actually worked out. That was the trip that we made a few years before the one I was talking about having the map and everything from. On that one, my parents actually didn't rent a car. They rode the hotel shuttle bus from the airport to the hotel, and the hotel that we stayed at was also running shuttle buses to the various Disney parks. So you didn't really need a car. You're able to get away with that. It saves some money. And I even have these shuttle bus trips logged in my train log account.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
All right.
no, that's another one of those sites out there. If you're into tracking stuff, all sorts of transit utilization you can put in.
So it's like a travel mapping for transit.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I feel like it's actually a little bit more like Flight Radar 24 in the sense that it's not about have I clinched this yes or no. It's actually about logging specific trips is the format. But yeah,
A little different then.
yeah. But yeah, for anyone who wants to track their train clinches, that is one place you can do it. The travel mapping site does also have an in development train clinching side. That
Is that in the works?
Yeah. It's still officially beta. No systems are considered active systems, and like while basically everything in the United States is in there, if you like have ridden trains in Europe or wherever, you'll find most of them probably aren't in there yet. It's, whereas it's different. Train log, you can actually log a trip on any track in the world. It's just it pulls in the raw map data from OpenStreetMap.
So on the right here is
What is this?
It's the Majesty Building, which is more fondly known around the Orlando area as the eyesore on I-4.
Yeah.
It's an incomplete 18-story office building in Altamont Springs.
Sponsored by the North Face.
It might be. Well,
You see it, right?
yeah, I do.
Don't tell me you don't see it.
Yeah. The structure is being constructed by the Religious Broadcaster Associated Christian Television System. If completed, it would be the tallest building in Seminole County. So good luck with that.
They need to pray harder.
I guess they do.
Thoughts and prayers.
They need to pray harder. Yeah, construction of this building actually began in 2001, and it's 24 years in without an ending in sight. More recent work that took place in the last few years completed the actual glass exterior, but the interior of the building is still a hollow shell. It's not occupied.
I mean, give them some credit, though. The Leaning Tower of Pisa took centuries to finish.
Well, yeah,
It's like if they're going for a record slowest building construction, they're not competing.
I guess, yeah.
Even forget the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Yeah, the central cathedral in Milan was under construction for even more centuries than that. It was only actually finished in the 20th century after having been under construction for over 500 years. But this actually used to be fairly commonplace, is that you had ornate cathedrals that would take a long time for craftsmen to slowly go through and do all sorts of by hand stuff, and very often construction would just stop for a while while things went out. This is part of the deal with Pisa, is that there was a period of nearly 100 years where the thing was just sitting there half finished because the kingdom of Genova got caught up in a war, and they were busy fighting a war, so they weren't going to keep building the stupid bell tower.
And priorities,
right? Yeah. And then there was a couple of regime changes, and eventually someone said, "Hey, look at this thing sitting here. Can we finish it?"
Yeah.
But yeah, pre-industrial things often moved slower. It's just
Which is part of why I think it's somewhat miraculous that the reconstruction of Notre Dame only took, 5 years?
Right, but that was able to also be done with modern construction. Technology.
It was not moving at the speed of cathedral construction.
And they only needed to rebuild part of the roof. Most of the cathedral was intact.
Yeah, certainly most of the pivotal points of it, yeah. But yeah, that reminds me also of that, isn't that skyscraper in Pyongyang that's...
the 100-story hotel that's never been finished.
Yeah, that North Korea...
But that's North Korea being North Korea.
North Korea just deletes it from their pictures of Pyongyang because they want people to forget that it exists.
Communist priorities.
Yeah. So as we emerge out the other side of the Orlando metro area, we're going to have an interchange up ahead here with the northern ends of 417 and 429 at the north end of the Orlando Loop.
Which is also recent, because that north end of 429 was not finished yet in 2019 when I was there. It only opened a couple of years ago.
I think when I drove this, it was like 2 or 3 weeks after it opened.
There you go.
So some of the signage that you'll see going through here was in the process of being changed. Like you'll see like back-to-back gantries where there's like an old gantry that's
only mentions 417
in place, but it hasn't been taken down in favor of the new gantry
Which
yet.
Even then, the northern end of like the southern end of 417, the northern end of it, is less than 30 years old. It's looking at old maps, right? There was a time where 417 ended after the Lake Jessup crossing, and then they later extended it up to I-4. Because this is the other thing here, right? Orlando was small enough back in the day that I-4 is the only road the feds funded the construction of. And all these other roads were mostly built as toll roads to finance their construction as the metro area was growing. But yeah, you have 417, 429, 528, yeah, the East-West Expressway, the Maitland Boulevard, too. It has all these various roads that are just added to the freeway network, and most of them are tolled because that's how they had to pay for them.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other episode in itself, is dissecting the Florida toll systems and the different agencies.
Your dual gantry deal here, right?
Yeah, so you see an old sign and a new sign. Interesting that on the new signage they post East Beltway and West Beltway.
Because it matters. All right.
Yeah.
The right, because the thing, yeah, the Central Florida Expressway Authority, formerly the Orange County Agency, right? It maintains a lot of these roads within the boundaries of Orange County, but a lot of them do exceed Orange County, and so this created a odd situation for a while. In fact, I experienced this when I was there in 2019 because there was a period of time where the Central Florida Expressway Authority was accepting Easy Pass, but neither Florida's Turnpike Enterprise nor FDOT were. And so you'd be going along one of these roads where you'd be able to use your Easy Pass, and then, at the next toll plaza, suddenly you wouldn't be able to anymore. And they had a little sign by the side of the road that said, had the Easy Pass logo with a no sign over it crossed out to indicate accepting it.
Sounds like the Atlantic Beach Bridge until relatively recently.
Yeah, and so right, I was going down some of these roads holding up my Easy Pass, and then of course I get to a toll plaza and I find now I got to stop and pay cash. And in most cases anyway. Whereas if you were going up 429, the northern section of 429 is also not the Central Florida Expressway Authority, and even though it wasn't finished then, the northernmost section that was finished was also not CFX. So they had there was a toll gantry on this section that actually was cashless. And so when I got up there and I realized this, it was an oh crap moment. And I was like, well, I can't use my Easy Pass and I'm in a rental car, so fine. Avis is gonna get a bill. Nothing I can do about it.
So yeah, 417 loops back to the south around the east side of the metro. 429 takes sort of a jog to the west initially towards Mount Dora before turning south
Dora.
to go around the western flank of Orlando.
Anyone want to say map and look that up? That was also a Dora the Explorer.
Was it?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Say map.
The melody almost sounded like a Mario thing.
No. I can see it actually. Yeah.
Bowser, no swiping.
Literally, Bowser. What the hell is the deal with you and the princess?
She's in another castle.
That's right. Our princess is in St. Augustine.
No, she's the mayor of D.C.
There you go.
Oh, that's been a running joke for years, hasn't it?
Bowser.
Welcome to Bowser's Castle.
I thought Bowser was half the host of Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour.
Wow.
Oh, that's a different Bowser. I should note that we're also coming up on the exit that'll take you to the Amtrak Auto Train. So if you don't want to drive all the way to D.C., speaking of D.C., you can take the Amtrak Auto Train.
Yeah, we should spend a minute on the auto train while we're here.
Dumps you off here in Safford, yeah.
Yeah, you can get on, and the other end of the auto train run is in Lorton, Virginia, outside of D.C., in northern Virginia. I have actually done the auto train before. This would have been 2016.
Not to be confused with the manual train.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience. I wouldn't do it again because it was kind of having a coach seat overnight on a train is not exactly the most comfortable thing in the world.
Yeah.
But I can understand the appeal of it. It's usually used by snowbirds. I was probably one of the youngest people on that thing that wasn't a kid.
It's a way to get your car down there without having to drive it the whole way.
And you skip several hundred miles of I-95, and it's a nonstop thing. That the way that they work it is that the train makes most of its run overnight, so you arrive the next morning at the other end of the line.
How long is the train ride?
It's probably like 16 hours, maybe.
Yeah,
something
I thought
like
it was
that.
something really long.
Yeah.
See, if they could make that high-speed rail, That would be good.
Well, good luck with that.
Huh.
Well, right. The challenge with that is that, right, see, the Northeast Corridor, where you actually have the busy part of the Northeast Corridor is well developed, but south of D.C., it starts to drop off, and a lot of that run, like, through the Carolinas and it's freight trackage. A lot of it's single track.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of that single track railroad used to be double track, but it isn't anymore.
Yeah.
Because the freight railroad said that we don't need a second track for our purposes, and this is something else that is worth noting, right? You talk about rail service. The Silver Meteor, which is the other Amtrak train to Florida, other than the auto train on the Floridian, it was a service from New York to Miami that predates Amtrak. Amtrak runs it now. The Amtrak edition of it is 2 hours longer each way in terms of scheduled time than the original inaugural run of the train from the 1930s. It takes 2 hours longer now.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is simply a question of that when it was run in the 1930s, the railroad running it was running on places where they had two tracks and it wasn't getting stuck behind freight trains, and now Amtrak is just to the likes of CSX and Norfolk Southern is an annoying tenant they don't want to deal with, so it slows it down.
Yeah. I do want to add one thing, that the amount of time it takes to get from Virginia to Florida on the auto train is not because it makes a bunch of stops in the middle. It actually only stops once, and it's not to pick up or discharge passengers. It stops, I believe, in Florence, South Carolina, and that's an overnight stop for refueling. And the auto train is a significantly longer, significantly heavier train than anything else in the Amtrak fleet, so it travels at a slower service speed than anything else that it's got. But again, it does have the added perk of, it is more or less nonstop if you discount the fueling stop, and you have the ability to cast off from Virginia if you're going south in the afternoon and arrive in Orlando in the morning. So the timing of it is actually pretty good.
See, I thought you were going to say it was to change crew.
They do that as well. Yeah, there are dedicated crews for each half of the line. Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, route that long. You can't have the same crew on duty for 16 hours.
Yeah, I remember
That would be ungood.
Yes, it would.
the time when I took Megabus to Philadelphia. So the bus is going down the Jersey Turnpike, and then it gets off at one of the service areas. I think it was the Edison service area. And I'm like, why? Why are we getting off at a service area? And it turned out it was to switch drivers.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because drivers have a limited amount of time that they can be behind the wheel at once, right?
Yeah,
right.
So that makes sense.
Which, I mean, a bus ride from New York to Philadelphia isn't long enough to need a driver change, but I'm sure Megabus just schedules it that way because, the same driver is able to go back and forth, a few times, but then, they'll max out if they make the trip the whole way, so they pull them out halfway.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's some sort of regulatory thing, similar to truck drivers having to log their time behind the wheel.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. In fact, it's the same regulations. Interstate. Well, because it's interstate commercial driving. Either way. So the duty cycle rules are the same.
11 hours max.
Yep.
14 on duty.
You lightweight. We're about 20 miles from Daytona Beach, so this video will end about 20 minutes or so, give or take. So
Deltona, not to be confused with Daytona, although they are fairly near each other.
Yes, they are. So if anybody has any questions or things they would like us to explain or expand on or whatever, now's a good time to get your questions and comments in before we start to wrap up for the night.
The chat?
Any good what?
User questions.
What does that mean?
Viewer questions, really.
Oh. Not really.
Okay.
Not that we have been getting questions that suck. It's just that
okay.
there hasn't really been. The chatter has been. Why are we buffering all of a sudden? Yeah, that's not good.
Buffer.
Hold up.
back in Orlando with the standstill traffic.
Yeah, right.
Well, it looks like it's actually it's your video player that's being choppy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it figured itself out.
All right, I think we're good.
I say I don't think that wasn't a problem with the internet connection. It was.
Yeah.
All right,
Is the
we're
video file local, or
Alright, we're
are
good.
you viewing it over a network?
No, I have the actual MP4 file on my computer.
Yeah.
That's what we're playing. All right, I think we're good.
D-Land.
Land.
Go from D-Land to DC.
It's interesting. Like the first real stretch of the auto train route out of Sanford parallels US 70. So it's the US 70, US 17 rather.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
so
is the same route that the Silver Meteor and the Floridian take. By the way, it's the same track.
It is the same track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I can say that I have sight clinched that part of US 17.
There you go. Well, were you awake for it?
I was awake for
Okay.
it. Yes,
so
I
if
was.
It follows US 17. Does that mean it goes down, that peninsula in Virginia by Jamestown?
No, it doesn't follow US 17 the whole way.
No, like only through like Florida, Georgia.
Oh, okay, and that's around.
No, it does go to Jacksonville and then to Savannah and then actually north of Savannah the route splits because you have the further inland route that the Floridian, formerly the Silver Star, took, and then the closer to the coast route that the Silver Meteor takes, and that I believe the auto train also does because it's a faster route, and then the two merge back together in North Carolina.
Yep.
The Silver Meteor stops in Charleston and the Floridian stops in Columbia. We're running further inland than the other.
Do you guys have a favorite amusement park? 'Cause that's something that's been discussed in the chat.
That's an amusing question.
I'm very amused by your answer.
I do, but it's not in Florida.
And mine would be biased because my dad used to work there.
A certain amusement park in New Jersey?
Yeah.
We're talking about?
Yeah.
What would
and
it be?
a
It would be Cedar
boatcraft.
Point.
But we're talking about Action Park now?
I wish it was actually.
Oh, okay.
That would be kind of neat.
Traction Park.
The place where if you didn't get hurt, you'd never been there.
I've been to its successor, but never the actual Action Park.
Oh, you missed that, bro.
I know.
It was a good time.
They still have some of the original Action Park rides there.
Yeah, they
At the
do.
water park there now.
Hmm.
And I think at one time, like one of the tube rides that were where it followed the terrain, at one time during it, not a couple of years ago, I think they forced the riders to wear helmets.
That's not a good sign. I've always been partial to Hershey Park. I guess that would be, if I had to pick one, that's what I would
Sweetest
pick.
park on earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were there not too long ago, right?
I
Or not in the park itself, but
was on the Hershey Highway last week.
There you go.
what was it, Chocolate Avenue?
Sure.
Whatever US 422 is, right?
Sure, that's the Hershey Highway, I think.
See, I
Wow.
okay.
No, I've been to a couple of amusement parks in Pennsylvania, but Hershey Park is not one of them.
Oh, all right.
No, I've been to Sesame Place years ago, of course. I've also been to Dutch Wonderland. Which is
Oh, nice.
Lancaster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lancaster.
which was actually
Lancaster.
yeah.
Lancaster it is.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like it's all this is the thing. I haven't been to an amusement park in years. It's not a thing I would necessarily go seek out at this point in my life.
Yeah, no, my favorite hands down is Cedar Point. No.
Yeah,
contest.
if you're a roller coaster enthusiast, yeah, Cedar Point is like the mecca, at least in the U.S. So I know a bunch of people who have been there. I am not one of them though.
Interestingly, I'm scared of heights, but I love roller coasters.
There you go.
Figure that one
That
out.
is kind of interesting. Okay.
Everything's got its way of working.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so as far as Hershey Park goes, I passed the exit for it on the way to Cumberland, Maryland. Well, not last year at this point, the year before, a little over a year ago. But it wouldn't really be my thing since I don't eat chocolate.
Well, as long as you don't take the factory tour, you don't have to eat chocolate.
They do have streetlights that are shaped like Hershey Kisses.
Yes, they do.
Yes, that's an amusing thing.
Yeah.
That area.
Maybe I should go.
See, he perked up when you mentioned the streetlights with Hershey Kisses on it.
Oh, no, there's something
It's
interesting
like, wait,
going on.
what?
Oh, there's actually something cool roads-wise there? All right,
Yeah.
I'm in.
On the topic of factory tours, the Cape Cod potato chip factory is a fun one.
They still offer that, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
When I was on Cape Cod this summer, I thought I would go back to that, and they were suspended for whatever reason.
Yeah, I remember going. I have done that many years ago. Again, this was a
Yeah.
childhood vacation, not something I've done
same
as an
here.
adult.
Yeah, when I was there this
Oh.
summer, it was my first time on Cape Cod in well, I'm sure it was at least 25 years. It may have been close to 30. So,
All right. Have you?
27, 28 years, I think.
Mm.
Definitely the most recent that it could have been was 1997.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see potato chips made, the Hers factory
That's the
in
one I was
Oxford,
gonna mention.
Pennsylvania is
Yep.
also an option. I have
Yep.
done that one too.
Yeah.
I've been on 2 potato chip factory tours.
Wow.
I should go do that.
Yeah, the Hearst factory is really good.
Unfortunately, you cannot tour the Crayola factory anymore. They
They got rid of that. Okay.
Oh, they got rid of it. Well, so what happened was, I think this was at some point in like the 90s, they moved to a new, larger factory, and they discontinued doing tours. They never built the tours into the newer factory. And it's just a question of like, it's annoying. They hate doing it. You got to keep it. And they figure a lot of little kids don't really recognize what's going on anyway. So what they did was they built the Crayola experience in Easton, which is like, a goofy kids museum about crayons, where, you can see someone give a demonstration of crayon making, but it's not like actually a factory tour.
Okay.
And it's lame. I've been there. You don't need to go there. Because it's not actually the factory tour.
They got rid of the crayon tasting part.
Oh, the other fun one in terms of places where they make things. In Washington, D.C., the Bureau of Engraving and Printing.
Oh, I thought you were about to talk about the U.S. Capitol and how they make sausage.
No. But yeah, you can go and see where they make the money.
Do they give you free samples at the end?
No.
For examples.
Right, and here's the thing. As someone who has, in the course of work, been in factories, I understand this too, right? Because when you go in a factory that isn't open to public tours, it looks very different.
Yeah.
They don't put too much effort necessarily into keeping it clean and tidy because they're not putting on a show. And it's a factory. Who cares if there's a little dirt here and there, right?
Yeah.
But And so when you invite the public in, you have to worry a lot about the public presentation, and that actually kind of gets in the way of the task of simply manufacturing stuff.
Well, to tie into this video, Nickelodeon Studios used to have a tour during the production of actual television shows, and that was an annoyance to some of the technical crew.
Yeah, I can see why that would be a pain.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Nickelodeon Studios, right, had their building in Orlando. That they stopped using that a long time ago. The building's since been repurposed. Actually, it stood there disused for a while, but
The Blue Man Group had like a show there for a while.
The Blue Man Group.
the original show in New York is shutting down.
They will be rebranded as the Orange Man Group, right?
Well, they're keeping. I know they're keeping the show in Las Vegas and whatever else. The New York one that's not getting. Which is, again, it's a question of that thing has been there for over 30 years at this point. It's kind of worn out. The original guys have all retired. It's not even the original guys doing it anymore. But
So, as we approach the east end of Interstate 4, we should talk about Daytona Beach for a minute before we sign off.
Vroom.
Yeah, so one of the more famous places in the world if you're an auto racing fan. The permanent population of Daytona Beach is about 80,000. It's known for being one of the capitals of auto racing in the United States, and it's known around the world for some of the endurance race events that have been held. In fact, as we're recording this right now, the Rolex 24-hour endurance race is taking place at the Daytona International Speedway. In 3 weeks from now, we're recording this in late January, but the annual running of the Daytona 500, which is the inaugural race of every NASCAR season going back to the late 1950s. The Daytona 500 will take place on February 16th or something like that this year. It's generally regarded as the most prestigious of all the NASCAR events on the calendar in a given year. It's the most coveted race for drivers to win. If you're a winner of the Daytona 500, it's similar to winning, the Indianapolis 500 in open wheel racing. It's similar to winning the Monaco Grand Prix in Formula One. It's on the short list of the greatest races in the world today. In fact, where the I-95, I-4 interchange is coming up here in a couple of miles, you can see the speedway from the interstate as you go by. I believe the venue has a seating capacity of over 200,000. That has grown significantly in the last 30 plus years or so.
Which is a lot of people for one venue.
Yeah.
Even football stadiums aren't half that big.
Right. But yeah, it is. The seating, the grandstand along the front stretch is enormous. And now this is something that Anthony alluded to earlier on the other side of the state of Florida, which was...
Oh, look, 400.
Highway 400. Which becomes signed at this point as it continues east from here into Daytona Beach proper.
Yeah, and it's not part of I-4, and it can't be because it's actually not a freeway once you get east of I-95. It's a divided highway, but there's intersections with lights. So, but it keeps the 400 designation that was hidden under I-4 the rest of this whole way here.
What's the other one that's like that? I think in Miami, what is it, Florida Highway 9?
Oh, there's various examples of mostly hidden but briefly revealed routes.
Yeah. But yeah, we are getting down to the end here, so David, you've been quiet. What do you got coming up on your website? What are you updating these days?
Well, I just finished a batch from Pennsylvania from the Pittsburgh trip last year. Or actually, one of my 2 Pittsburgh trips last year. This batch goes as far out as State College, and then at some point I'll be coming in and finishing the rest of the way out to Pittsburgh, and then there's a whole lot of Pittsburgh content that'll be coming. In more immediate time frame, tomorrow is going to be some Maryland content, starting out in the Baltimore area, then down toward DC and out into Virginia. After that, probably some upstate New York and the Albany area. So yeah, those are the things that are most immediate, but can also talk about some of the traveling that I've done in 2024.
Do you want to make a quick note about how this interchange is configured? Note here that while 400 does continue geographically straight ahead, it is signed as an exit because the majority of the traffic coming off of I-4 does get on 95 North as we are here, so that is the preferred movement in terms of interchange geometry.
Yep. makes sense. So anyway, yeah, I've been kind of all over the map in 2024. So as I mentioned, I had 2 trips out to Pittsburgh, which included going out into Ohio both times. Then over the summer, I did a northern New England trip, which took me to all 3 of the northern New England states, especially Maine, and including all the way up into northern Maine, Aroostook County, that huge county that's so big it could be its own state.
The county.
Yep. And over the border into New Brunswick, Canada. Also spent a decent amount of time in Massachusetts on that trip, so that's a state that has had some coverage on the site going back to 2009, but has definitely been underserved. So that's going to be changing. It started changing already and will be continuing to change. And then just recently, during my winter vacation, I took a week and I went down south, y'all.
Oh, look, a Bucky's sign.
So, Virginia and North Carolina.
Everybody get excited. Bucky's.
Which is state number 15 for me. So, yeah, recent updates. I added my first content from New Hampshire, so that's state number 11 for the site, and it's going to be going up to 15 soon. So, lots to come over the next year or 2.
End video.
Alright. So, oh look, it's a doughy butt. So, that's all we got. So I-4's eastern terminus is 260 miles north of downtown Miami on I-95, and it's about 100 miles from downtown Jacksonville. In case you were wondering. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. This was a lot of fun to do, and look forward to the next one. In the meantime, in the next 3 weeks, there will be pre-recorded webinars being released once a week on the weekends. In fact, the first of these, which is going to go public on February the 1st, is already available to channel members, so if you're a member, you can check that one out. And there will be more live programming as well, whether pre-recorded or live, in the next, I'd say, couple of months is fair game. So we'll see what we come up with.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
Is it what?
That's an old commercial. You're too young.
Yeah, I
That's a commercial.
don't know that one. Sorry.
I'm old enough to remember Memorex, but I do not remember that commercial.
We should do a webinar about that. So anyway, thank you guys, David, Anthony, Maddie, and Bill, for joining me tonight, and thanks for watching. And we will see you on the next one. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Da-da.